A reading from the Gospel according to Luke. Now Jesus was teaching in one of the synagogues on the Sabbath. And just then there appeared a woman with a spirit that had crippled her for 18 years. She was bent over and quite unable to stand up straight. When Jesus saw her, he called her over and said, "Woman, you are set free from your ailment." But when he laid his hands on her, she immediately stood up straight and began praising God. But the leader of the synagogue, indignant because Jesus had cured on the Sabbath, kept saying to the crowd, "There are 6 days on which work ought to be done. Come on those days and be cured, and not on the Sabbath day." But the Lord answered him and said, "You hypocrites! Does not each one of you on the Sabbath untie his ox or his donkey from the manger and lead it away to give it water? And ought not this woman, a daughter of Abraham, whom Satan bound for 18 long years, be set free from this bondage on the Sabbath day?" When he said this, all his opponents were put to shame, and the entire crowd was rejoicing at all the wonderful things that he was doing. The word of the Lord. I love this story which, of course, correlates closely with some of Jesus' other healing miracles when he heals the man with the crippled hand on the Sabbath. And it's a powerful message that is used to look at others who are so closely following the strict letter of the law, which says you do not work on the Sabbath, that they're missing out on the spirit of the law, which is that ultimately all of the law is about loving God and loving your neighbor. And so Jesus uses these beautiful illustrations of breaking the technical letter of the law in order to keep to the spirit of the law by healing this woman in need. And I think most of us probably reasonably look at this story and say, of course, Jesus is absolutely in the right here. And of course, not healing somebody who is crippled on the Sabbath simply because it is the Sabbath would be silly and inhumane. And this story makes sense to us. It does make me wonder, though, if we think to ourselves about our own lives, and maybe it's not working on the Sabbath that we use as a rationalization or a justification of not answering where God is calling us to be, or where we are being called to love our neighbors. Maybe it's not the Sabbath. Maybe it's some other justification. And so I want to invite us to think about that in our own lives. I can think about times in my life where I had the opportunity to help someone in need, but I had a good reason why I didn't have to in that moment. I was really busy. I had somewhere I had to be. I can think of an opportunity where I could have forgiven somebody, but had a good reason for why I chose not to. And it's because they haven't said that they were sorry yet. Or I'm not sure they've understood how they hurt me. Or I had an opportunity to make a difference in someone's life, but I had a good reason not to, because I had already been kind and loving today. And so I used up my kind and loving quotient, quota for the day. When I was in seminary, one of my seminary faculty members, the Reverend Justin Lewis Anthony, had given me a lesson that has stuck with me all these years. And he said, there's a real danger in the power of rationalization. That we as human beings, if we have the ability to rationalize that our reasons for not helping or not loving, not serving or forgiving, if we can rationalize why we are right for that, we can let ourselves off the hook for pretty much anything. So maybe you in your life aren't going to rationalize not helping someone in need because it's the Sabbath, and that may sound like not a good rationalization for you. But this is an invitation to think within yourself, what rationalizations do you use to let yourself off the hook of being the person following the spirit of the law instead of the letter of the law? Maybe you, like me, have used the rationalization of thinking, I'm really busy, or I've already done enough, or this person doesn't deserve it in this case. Any of those, or some rationalizations of your own. I take this as an opportunity for us to think for ourselves about where we choose to let ourselves off the hook, not following the spirit of the law because we've got a good reason for following the letter of the law. And it may call us to some eye-opening hard realities. It may call us to be more loving, more charitable, and more generous, and will ultimately lead us to being more like the people God calls us to be. Amen.